We're ready, everybody? Good afternoon. We are going to call the public meeting to order for July 23rd in the year of our Lord 2013. And I suppose we should be a little pomp and circumstance. Should we have a Union Jack or something here for the arrival of the new baby?
Not until we get the name.
Not till we get the name?
Just come out of the hospital then. So.
The name is going to be Joseph George Spencer. What do you think?
J.J. Spencer. That's a good last name.
Well, it's not his last name, though.
J.G.
Do any of you know his last name? By the way, do any of you know his last name? What will be his last name? Yeah, what, like William, the prince, the prince of.
She's not going to spell George.
In the language of us commoners to the Commonwealth, his name is Mr. Mountbatten. But because he is a royal and a blue blood, his last name is actually Windsor. Just thought you'd like to know. Anyway, now we'll call the meeting. It must be summer. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of July 23rd, 2013. I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Aker, who's making a political message with his shirt today, I think. Is that a political message with that pink today? No?
Nice and bright.
It's new.
I would have called it orange, actually. I would have called it orange.
Are there any other additions to the agenda other than the piece of paper that I have? And I'm assuming that's a replacement for the invoices for approval.
Yes.
Are there any other additions to the agenda that we are not aware of? Hearing the answer no, call the question. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. First item then on the agenda, minutes and action report of our public meeting of July 9th. Entertain a motion. Moved by Councillor Stoyle, seconded by Councillor Ledwell, that the minutes be accepted as they are presented. Before we call the question, any errors or omissions to be referenced? Errors or omissions to the minutes of July 9th? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Business arising from the meeting of July 9th, I'd ask that you refer to items by the individual numbers for it. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Locke, please.
502, dealing with the Bay Bulls Big Pond water levels. Some residents actually were just asking me yesterday if I knew anything. So I was just going to ask Councillor Walsh if...
Give you an update as part of the report.
Perfect, thank you.
He's going to do a report on it. Okay. Any other business arising? Again, this would be for the minutes of July 9th. Anything from anybody? All right, hearing none, we're going to move along. No proclamations or correspondence to address this afternoon, Council. We'll, move directly to committee reports. First would be the Public Works report. Councillor Walsh, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And to the Deputy Mayor's question, we are pretty much at the same level in terms of comparison that we were last time. We actually did drop a little. The pond right now, Deputy Mayor, is at about 31 feet. And just to put that in a little perspective, that's again a couple of feet lower than we were this time last year. And same thing, if you recall, 2 weeks ago, while the level was up a little more than it is now, it was about 2 feet lower than it was previously. So we're not dropping by any alarming rate, but the pond level is dropping. It's still early in the summer, and it's a fairly dry summer. We're having another great summer like we did last year. So again, the message obviously is to continue to conserve water, especially the watering of lawns. People are seeing again that the lawns are turning a little foxy, and they're afraid that the lawns may in fact be dead. But they're not. They're actually fairly healthy. A little drop of water, a little bit of rain actually is better than hours and hours of sprinkling. And we will inevitably get some rain. There's no doubt about that. We may have to wait a little longer for it. That's all good. Wouldn't it be great if it would rain overnight and it would be sunny and bright? That would be a perfect combination, but it doesn't. Yeah, if you could put that on committee.
I was going to say, and so, just what committee writes that bylaw for?
Yeah. So no,
we're up for it.
Absolutely. So we're in reasonably good shape, Deputy Mayor, and We'll continue to monitor the levels. We do get regular reports, and the director does pass the regular reports on to us. And anytime you have a question, feel free to drop a line to either the director or to me. If I have information, I'll be happy to pass it on.
I have a question for you,
Sure.
Councillor Walsh, and perhaps through you to Director Collins. I haven't heard myself a single report this summer of people actually violating the water conservation rules.
I think
Have we encountered much of that, and is our municipal enforcement patrolling and having people shut it down? Are we getting much? Is there much violation?
Well,
I haven't heard of any. That's why I
maybe
wondered.
the
There has to
director
be,
can,
has to
but
be
I can
some.
I can tell you what I've seen. I was up in phase 5, phase 6 of the Donovan's project up there last week, and I was delighted to see the municipal enforcement up there. When I finished the meeting, which I had on site there, I went over and spoke to the municipal enforcement officer, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was up there looking for violations. There had been a couple of reports of people watering lawns, and in that case, it might have been, in fact, new lawns, in which case it probably would have been okay. So they're on it. But from my observation, there's been generally good compliance, but there have been a couple of violations even in my neighborhood where people were, again, thinking that their lawn is dead, turning on the water. But, of course, the message, again, is only during the times that are cited, which is Wednesday and Saturday for the even numbers and Wednesday and Sunday for the odd number houses. And I think we'll take care of business. I'm not sure if Director Collins, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so there's some violation, but, given the...
Just haven't been very many, or that's
No,
my
not a lot.
feeling. That's
No,
my
I
feeling,
think-
that
I think
people are
we're-
generally...
Yeah, we're in reasonably good shape, I think, and
good.
most people are complying, but we want 100% compliance. That's
Please,
what we
yes.
need.
Very good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And moving on, Your Worship, just again, as we're in the habit of doing, the summer maintenance report. The street sweeper is one of the issues that people actually call about and inquire about regularly. We're getting through the city, I think reasonably fast. There is an area... all the major areas have been done, in fact, including Donovan's Business Park, which is a big area for us to do. Areas remaining are from Smallwood Drive Extension and the side streets that are south towards Admiralty Wood. That would be Pearlgate, Westminster, Admiralty Wood, that area, and some of the areas across the way in Westbrook Landing. The playfields and playgrounds continue to be maintained, and all street repairs, that would be street cuts and curb repairs, are in the works and are ongoing. We're getting through those reasonably well. And the second scheduled collection of bulk garbage, Your Worship, is now in effect into the third week. Route 3 should be completed sometime, I guess by the end of next week, actually, I think. And again, we're getting very, very few complaints, and I want to pass on to the staff and to our director our gratitude, because the first time around, again, we had a number of changes and little operational changes. The crews are doing a fabulous job right now, and I can say honestly, I haven't received not even a single complaint this time. So,
Really good.
if you would, Director Randall, if you'd pass on our gratitude to the staff, I think that would be much appreciated. We don't want them to just know when there are issues or when there are concerns or complaints, but if they're doing a really good job, we'd like for them to know that. So in your meeting in the morning, perhaps you might be able to pass that on to them as well. That's it for me, Your Worship. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Community Services, Councillor Tessier is not with us. Deputy Mayor Locke and Councillor Stoyles, you will serve as alternate on this committee today. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to say that I was out to visit young Sam yesterday, and he started to eat, so that was a good sign.
That's good.
Yeah, so he started to eat some solid food, and he had lost 16 pounds, but he was happy, he was chipper, and so it looks like he's on the mend, so not good, right?
Amen.
So Councillor Tessier asked, of course, to let everyone know that she wanted to be here, but obviously she couldn't.
Sure.
She's where she should be.
That's right. Exactly where she needs to be.
All right, the first thing here is the Telly 10. Who's running the Telly 10 this year here? Councillor Aker?
Not me.
Director Collins? Sorry? Silver? Yeah.
We have several, actually.
Good.
Don Kelly's running. I know it's a number.
Who is running? Steve Butler is running.
Yeah. 8 people on staff? Excellent.
I'm going to drive it, I think.
All right. Yeah, or I could bike ride it, I guess. Nice article in today's paper, but I think they're expecting 3,200 people to run it this year. Which
Can
is,
you bike ride
which is
it?
Good. No, I guess for safety reasons you couldn't, right?
I'd probably go for that.
Yeah, maybe a double. Maybe you can get a loan of Steve Watson's big tricycle.
His fancy 1860s
That's
bicycle.
Right. Yeah, make a statement. Anyways, Your Worship, Telly 10 is this Sunday, July 28th, and our residents and all the general public, just an advisory here that it's going to start at 7 a.m. in Paradise. They're going to be running east. They will come through Mount Pearl on Topsail Road and exit the city again at Topsail Road by Duns Lane. Again, it's anticipated that Topsail Road is going to have to be closed, and I did notice one of our mobile signs up there on Topsail Road today, alerting drivers and residents that the road will be closed from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And just a heads up that anybody who may need to leave Mount Pearl for hospital or any other emergencies should take the Brookfield Road east or Richard Nolan Drive to go east or west on Pitts Memorial. The race committee is expecting, as we said, 3,200 racers, so that's just an FYI there.
Thank you.
Another one, Your Worship, has to do with a week from today, July 30th, always a well-attended event, Holy Sepulchre Outdoor Mass. It's scheduled for 7 p.m. And again, just a heads up to the residents that they're expecting upwards of 12,000 people to attend this particular Mass. So obviously we're going to have some major traffic congestions, as always, along Topsail Road and Black Marsh Road. So that's just a heads up.
Just, if I could.
Yep.
Councillor Walsh?
Yeah. Do we have the opening next Tuesday? I wasn't thinking about that, actually. Is that going to present any kind of logistical problems for us? I know I'm normally at Holy Sepulchre
Right.
for that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about that. I'd say.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about that
afterwards.
Yeah, I never noticed that the two things conflicted. We're gonna have to make some kind of a little change.
Yeah, we have to reschedule.
Yeah.
We can look into that though.
Maybe even the time.
Well, I'm just thinking the time.
Yeah.
Maybe we just got to tweak it by half an hour or
A
an
bit
hour.
later or something.
All right. Sorry. Carry on, sir.
Just information, but as I was thinking about that, for traffic congestion, I don't know if this has ever been done. Have we ever looked at a shuttle service similar to what we had, for example, at our city days? I know we had shuttles coming in, I think from Masonic Park and Mount Pearl Intermediate to help alleviate. I mean, was any thought ever given to do a similar thing to this? Because, as we said, pardon me? Yeah, close proximity, and if we could get some kind of little shuttle service, and they may certainly alleviate the massive traffic that we see every year. Okay.
I think it would be something that we'd have to. I think it would be something that we'd have to recommend to the church. It wouldn't
Right.
be something that we would do, but it
But
would
a
be something
suggestion
we'd
throughout?
recommend to the church, and certainly we'd work with them to achieve it. I
Absolutely.
think it's a really good idea
Yeah.
if we could.
Because you can understand a lot of the seniors or people with mobility issues, they need to be close to get there, so you can understand why they have to park close. But if we could make it a little more convenient with a shuttle service, that may enhance the safety aspect of that area during that particular time. Just a thought, so we'll probably take that back to our committee and chat about it. The next item, Your Worship, the third one here is the Association for the Arts in Mount Pearl. Arts in the Park, August 5th, 2013. Just a heads up again, an invite to families to come on out to Centennial Park, of course next to City Hall here, at 7 p.m. for the Arts in the Park event. Great fun and entertainment will be had for the whole family. So again, hopefully the weather cooperates, and based on our track record now, we should hopefully have a good day for that. And unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town for that, so I encourage other people to get out, and residents as well, to come out for some great fun and entertainment.
Deputy Mayor, could we get a calendar reminder on that?
Sure. Okay. And that's it for community services, Your Worship.
Thank you. We're going to move to corporate services, so you may as well stay on your feet.
Yeah,
Deputy
just the
Mayor.
one item here for us today, Your Worship, and that's this blue sheet that you made reference to earlier. We had a couple of additions since our package was prepared last week. We have 20 invoices for approval here today, totaling $2,636,975.46, and I move that the amount be accepted as presented.
It is moved and seconded. Any questions or comments, items 1 through 20? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
That's it for me, Your Worship.
Engineering services, thank you. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one item for us this evening as well, and it's an update on the multiplex progress. The testing of the last phase of the geothermal well work has now been completed, and the repair and installation of the new exhaust units in the kitchen have now been completed. Of course, that's going to be a good news for our user groups, different community groups who use the facility for banquets and the like. Certainly, the kitchen being out of service added a bit of an extra wrinkle to some of those events, and now that that's operational, certainly it'll make things easier for everyone. The chamber has been installed for the storm detention system, and we've got it now connected to the city storm system, so progress is being made there as well. The roof work, as I mentioned, is now on the existing Reed Centre is now complete. You'll see that the siding is now being installed on the existing Reed Centre as well, and work has now started on the leisure pool. Finally, I just want to mention, I guess, that the glass now on the main entrance of the building has now been, we're now starting to install that. Got an email from Director Antle just before the meeting, as a matter of fact. So, as we always say, it's starting to look more and more like a building every day. Certainly you can see where a lot of these things are going to fall now, and we're certainly making good progress. So all is good on the multiplex front. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Planning and Land Use.
One more.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, we had an email, I think all members of council, Your Worship, that there was a staff addition. I think Robert Ducey is actually overlooking the multiplex site. Is Daryl now not on that project, or is there a change in that? Like, what's happening there? Because I know he was there. That was his position.
Now, Daryl is still, of course, as our Assistant Manager of Engineering, still very much involved in the progress. Our site coordinator that we had previously, that's the gentleman that has moved on to another challenge, I guess, and we do now have a new junior engineer that will be serving as our site coordinator, and we'll be working with Daryl and the contractor and so on.
And Daryl is coordinating from the office.
Exactly.
I know, he's a real fine young
A Mount Pearl resident. Thank you. Councillor Aker, the floor is yours for planning.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item is a request we have from a resident at 44 Frontenac Avenue to have a daycare. Basically, this is a family dwelling with also subsidiary apartment. We've looked at it both in committee of the whole as well as at the Planning and Land Use Committee. We need 5 spaces to accommodate the proposed use. 2 spaces for the main dwelling, a space for the subsidiary apartment, as well as 2 spaces for the family child care use. We just simply don't have that. I guess somebody sent an invitation to everybody in the room. Yeah. Oh, somebody got a bell. Yeah. So the number of parking stalls is deficient. The department also has an issue where this is located on a corner lot. Dropping off children, it may not be. It may be a safety issue. So the motion coming from the committee is that we refuse the application. As outlined in Section 9 of the Mount Pearl Development Regulations, as well as user discretionary powers as it relates to the corner lot, basically to refuse the application. So on 2 fronts, both in terms of parking as well as location. And I so move.
Move seconded. Any question or comment? I just an observation, I suppose, from me, Councillor Aker, into 5 parking spaces. There are 2 required for the house. There's 1 required for the apartment, and then there are 2 additional parking spaces required for the daycare activity. That's how this thing gets broken down, is it? Do we not have other residential daycare though that does not meet that requirement?
Don't think so?
Not that we're aware of. They would all have to have. If you wanted to have a residential daycare in Mount Pearl and be properly licensed, you know, it's just not grandma taking care of the kids. That's one of the absolute minimum requirements. You must have 5 spaces. Is that categorically the case?
Well, not necessarily 5 spaces. Depends what you have in the dwelling. A number of
4 if you didn't have a basement apartment.
correct. And if you look at the number of dwellings that we do have around the city, a lot of them have a double driveway. You can actually park 4 cars in the driveway, and I'd say some of these other daycares probably meet that. In this case, they only have 2-car driveway, and even by our present standards, they're substandard at this point.
Are they in a position, and I don't know if this was dealt with or not, are the people in a position who want to develop the daycare to add parking? Could they meet that minimum standard?
They have not indicated that they wish to do so. They don't believe they need any more parking than what they have right now. And that's the application. This is why it's coming forward. We went back and advised the applicant of the number of parking spaces required, asked them how they want to proceed. They asked that this application go forward on the basis that's presented to council.
You know, my concern with it, and it's just an observation or comment, is that, you know, in a community like Mount Pearl, I find it personally difficult, right, to be turning down daycare, you know, when spaces are so desperately required. And that's why I wondered, had they done the exercise with you to see whether or not they could actually modify their application to meet the minimum standards. They have not. Okay. Thank you. That answers my questions. Anybody else with any questions or comments?
No, but I think we share your concern.
Yeah, I think we all feel the same way. I mean, you know,
We'd like to have a lot more daycare spaces in the city. It meets a genuine need.
yeah, none of us are jumping up and down by telling the people on Frontenac they can't
We're
have the
only
daycare.
asking
That's all. That's,
this proponent, basically, this applicant, I should say, to do what everybody else has been told to do at the end of the day, right? And there's also the issue of the corner lot. It's not just about the parking too, right? It's not really a good location for dropping kids on and off. Yeah. And technically, there's no access to this corner lot yet, but the subdivision is slowly creeping up that will join in the back, right? So, you know, there's two bases for the refusal, and I so move.
all right, it has been moved. Who seconded for you again today? Councillor Ledwell. Questions or comments? Any? Hearing none, then we will call it. All in favor? Contrary minded? Sadly. Motion is carried.
The next one, Your Worship, is a request to acquire city land. Seaforth Properties would like to buy a strip of land out in Donovan's to enable some access to a piece of property that they have over there. This has been in the works and approved by council for a few months now. We've got our open space conservation zone zoning now all lined up to accept this. Basically, it allows for certain types of structures to occur in areas where there's where you have the buffer in that for the waterway and the lake. And for example, a driveway or a parking lot would be acceptable. The last bit of business we have here is we valued the property at $10,500. The motion is to sell the property to Seaforth, and they will pay all the appraisal, survey, and legal costs, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next item is 31 Michener Avenue. We have a request for variance on a accessory building. The proposal is to construct a 25.72 square meter building. I believe, based on the lot calculation, the maximum size is 23.38 meters square, and that's based on the 7% of the lot coverage calculation. Council can approve this subject to, I guess, a public notice process. All neighbors within 150 meters, and that makes up about 134 property owners were notified. We received no commentary back, nothing good and nothing bad. The department and the committee sees no reason why we wouldn't approve this 10% variance. And I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Now we want to add the open-air assembly use to several of the use zones here in Mount Pearl, they being the city center, the community and public service zone, and the open space zone, as well as the industrial light zone. Basically, these zones, we're going to establish a permitted use for open-air assembly in order to accommodate outdoor worshiping. We've got a request from one of the faiths here in Mount Pearl to do that. We're restricting the use to these particular zones. They're not residential. We don't think it'll be very invasive from a noise point of view. We went through we had a notice of motion on June 25th, scheduled a briefing session on July 23rd. And basically, we've gone through our public consultation process. We received no feedback from anybody in Mount Pearl or otherwise. And the committee and the department will support the recommendation to follow up on the notice of motion. So we want to add open-air assembly use to those zones, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Hallelujah. Now,
See, gentlemen, there's where the problem arises, right?
this is going to get personal. Donovan Homes, 22 lots, residential subdivision.
We're going to have some group out there now protesting public open-air worship services after 58 years, thanks to you
It
guys.
may not be Christian worship. It could be anything, right, Jim?
I'm just saying.
Just saying. Anyway, let's move on to Donovan Homes, 22 lots, the subdivision known as Pearlgate Development Phase, that would be Mount Carson Terrace subdivision, Phase 6. 22 lots. Basically, this is an extension of a very fine subdivision that's occurred as you enter the top part of the Mount Carson area. And you can see some of the conditions that have applied there. It will include privacy fence, emergency access roads, and a whole bunch of conditions, as you can see, are listed on pages 12 to 9. Everything from meeting the goals of the Kenmount Hill Infill Comprehensive Development Scheme all the way down to signing a subdivision development agreement. This has become fairly routine because we have a pattern already established, a very good developer. Those conditions have been worked out according to our regulations as well as in consultation with engineering services. And I would move that we approve the subdivision known as Phase 6.
Moved, seconded. Questions, comments? All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The next one is a follow-up to an application on behalf of Parties Waste Management, 30 Kyle Avenue, who have requested to put a second building on their site. And in the department's review, they noticed that there's a chain link fence, which is along Glencoe Drive. It doesn't meet our fence regulations. Essentially, the fence should be along, not the property line, but should be along the setback, which would be 10 meters. The company now came back to the city and proposed, because of the location of two light poles, they asked could they put the fence back 7 meters. And I don't think the department had any issue with that because the department looked at it from a safety point of view. But when we reviewed it in committee, I guess what we were thinking was basically why don't we stick to our development regulations? The issue is the poles. So in the spirit of compromise, what we're going to work out with the owner of the property is to have the majority of the fence back 10 meters. But in the area where the poles are, they're going to jut out. I'm not sure that's a technical term. They'll jut out to capture the poles. The owner of the property would just like to have the poles basically inside the fenced area. I don't think it establishes much of a precedent. What we're always worried about typically, I think, in terms of precedent, is that somebody else is going to build it the same way down the road. I don't see a whole bunch of fences going up with juts in them. So we'd like to, as the committee, in the spirit of compromise, the committee is recommending that we go with this pattern whereby the fence is 10 meters, except for the juts, which would be 7 meters from the
juts.
From the road. And I so move. Yeah. Google that.
Oh, my engineers will love it. All those in favor? Contrary minded, the juts are approved.
The juts are with you. May the juts be with you. 12 Erickson, let's move on. Accessory building. Basically, the owner is proposing to build a 60.2 square meter building. And this is a very large lot. So the 7% lot coverage does not kick in. It's actually capped at the maximum, which is 55.75 meters square. There is a variance allowed, and the proponent, I think, wants, to be exact, a 9% variance. Public notification process was engaged. 118 property owners within a 150-meter radius were notified, as well as our MHAs, MPs, advertised in the telegram. On the city's webpage, we received no negative feedback by the due date, which was Thursday, July 18th. The department and the committee see no issue why we wouldn't approve this variance, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
All right, on to the development permit list for July 8th to the 19th. We have one there for care operations, restaurant occupancy, 160 Old Center Road, and I so move.
All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Chicken and ribs, anybody? Players Q, is it? No, the Dooley's. West Side Charlie's, next to Dominion. Yeah. All right, the July 5 to the 19th, building construction residential. The total for the period is $370,650, and I so move.
All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Commercial for the same period is $530,600, and I move that as well.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Contrary
That's it,
minded,
Your Worship. Thank you.
motion carried. Thank you. Well, I just went back to look at my arrangements for new business last council meeting, and that's the one I went back and forth, right? I think so. Yeah, I got myself all confused now. I'm looking at it here and saying, how did I get from Councillor Walsh to Councillor Ledwell? Hold on, and how did the deputy mayor? I screwed it up, didn't I? I got myself all mixed up. New business, Councillor Stiles. I'm just going to pick random now.
Thank you, Worship. I have a couple of things I want to mention. Firstly, Don, who passed away, send our sympathy to his family. Of course, he was President Michael and a member of our parish for a number of years. I served on fundraising committees and that over the past number of years and want to pass out our sympathy to his family. Also, Your Worship, myself and Councillor Ledwell attended MMSB. They had an announcement here in Mount Hill at the recycling depot. I have some posters here from them, and they announced the 2 billion recycling launch, and that are heading off for more new initiatives, and of course encouraging schools mic is on, encouraging schools to recycle, because they get 100% of the profits, the money back. So wanted to mention that. And of course, City Days, we just had a fantastic weekend. Of course, all of us were there out in full force, and thank you to the staff especially, and all the volunteers who put so much time into City Days, because this don't happen. We can put money into stuff as a city, but unless you get the volunteers and staff buying into it and taking so much pride into the weekend, and the residents coming out and showing their support. Like Sunday night was unbelievable. I think it's one of the biggest crowds we've ever had for the end of the show in the evening time. And like I said, hats off to the staff and to the volunteers. Also, Your Worship, I attended a number of Special Olympics. The Newfoundland Labrador Games was on for Special O, and I attended some at the track and field. And of course, wanted to say hats off to the goal winners for soccer, who won the thing, and some of them were at our field on Sunday afternoon that we had recognised them, and it was great to see so many of them and so many people out supporting Special O. And also, Your Worship, I attended the retirement party for Frank Stoyles, who retired after 33 years with the city. And over the past number of years, we've had a number of people retire, and want to say best wishes to Frank and his family, and thank him for his service with the city. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. We are going to go to Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to just reiterate as well, I wasn't able to get to Frank's retirement, but I know he's a great employee. He's been there a long time, and just a great man. I hope he's enjoying his retirement. I certainly want to concur with you, Councillor Stoyles, and I know it was a real busy time, so for you to take the effort to be able to be there and personally bring greetings, I think it was great that there was a representation from council there, so thank you for doing that. And all the best to Frank. If you happen to be talking to him, Jerry, would you give him our regards as well? The last time we met, Your Worship, I made mention of the St. Peter's Elementary School issue. I did receive an email today from Mr. Dwyer from St. John's Regional Fire. They did have a meeting with the Eastern School District. They first of all asked for a transcript of the building plans, which provided for them all of the measurements of the different classrooms for usage there. They, subsequent to that, they met with officials from Eastern School District, and then they carried out their inspection of the school, and I think that inspection was carried out on the 19th of July. They actually went in, measured the classrooms, verified the numbers that were provided to them by St. Peter's Elementary and by the Eastern School District, and of course they found that the numbers that they were given were correct. I should preface my
Which does that mean that the school is actually
overcrowded? Yeah, it was broken down into various rooms. From a life safety perspective, Your Worship, they don't get into analyzing, except that every room has a capacity. But they don't get into, for example, analyzing whether or not the computer lab is sufficient to carry out all of the needs from an educational perspective. They're doing a life safety inspection. And as long as there are no more than, say, 38 or 39 or whatever that room size can take at a given time, well, then they're within compliance with the code. So based on the Regional Fire Department's inspection, the building is within, and the number of students, the enrollment is within capacity. The St. John's Regional Fire Department were informed by the Eastern School District that last year's enrollment was 750 students. The proposed enrollment for this September, and there's a big issue about this, as you know, is supposed to be 765 students. Even at that, from a life safety perspective only, and I want to reiterate that, the St. John's Regional Fire Department concludes that they're within compliance and substantially within compliance. The school could probably, from a life safety perspective, hold approximately 900 students, strictly from a life safety. Again, I want to comment on rooms such as the cafeteria. there is a maximum number of people that can be in the cafeteria at any given time. Of course, the school administration can look at that and say, given the capacity issues in the cafeteria, we have a number of different options. We could, for example, have a shift system whereby people come through the cafeteria at different times and have 20 minutes or 25 minutes to eat lunch, and then they're out. And as long as they're within the maximum capacity from a life safety perspective and the fire exits are all functional, they don't have any issue with that. So it's an entirely different kind of perspective. I can tell you this much, being familiar with the building, and as many of you know, I was 10 years principal at O'Donnell High School next door. I wouldn't want to be a teacher or a student in that building with 900 students in it, even though it would comply with life safety standards. So I think the building is very, very crowded. Mayor, I know you and I were both copied by Mr. Sullivan, the school council chair. They're having a march on Friday morning. I'm going to extend an invitation to all members of council if you'd like to be there. I'm going to be there. I think the mayor plans to be there.
I do.
Just to show some support to the parents and to the children and to Mr. Sullivan and his school council members, just to let them know that we share their concerns. We understand that 765 students in that building, while it may not violate any life safety codes, and that the rooms can take the capacity, are they getting a quality education? There are a number of issues that the school council have raised. They've lost, for example, a second vice principal. Their CRT scores are below the provincial and national average. There are a number of different things that they're talking about. So I'm going to be there and provide some support for them. And he's asking, Mr. Sullivan was asking, us to attend. I don't believe, at least on the copy of my email, I don't believe he copied all members of council. So I'd certainly extend the invitation to you. It's 8 o'clock. It's at the parking lot next door on Friday morning, next door to the elementary school, they share the parking lot with St. Peter's Church. So just gather there. I'm sure they'd appreciate your support, and just having some members of council on site to do that. And again, I'm not my position certainly hasn't been to beat up on Eastern School District in any way, shape, or form, but I think the parents and the teachers who are in that building and the administration, they're saying that they're really too tight for space. While it may not violate life safety codes, there are definitely some compromises in terms of the level of education that they're able to provide. There have been stories, for example, of children being forced, because of the capacity issues in the cafeteria, being forced to eat their lunch at their desks, and we know that that's neither healthy and it doesn't give the students any kind of a break either in terms of a stretch and getting out of their classrooms and that sort. And it does put an awful lot more pressure, as Deputy Mayor would appreciate, on teachers then to provide multiple supervision, whereas you might have 2 or 3 teachers in a cafeteria with a couple of hundred. If you have 25 or 28 in a classroom, you need a teacher for every single classroom from a supervision perspective. So there are all kinds of issues. I'm assuming that these parents are not blowing smoke. They have legitimate concerns. I'm sure they do, and I'd like to support them on Friday. I'm not saying too bad that the life safety violation. In fact, I think that's good that there's not a violation of life safety, so there's not an issue for us from a life safety perspective. We'll be supporting them on another level entirely on Friday. And I just wanted to pass that information on. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ledwell. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to defer to the Deputy Mayor to comment.
Councillor Walsh, did you say the enrolment for this year was 765, so 15 over last year?
Yes, and I think for the last couple of years, Deputy Mayor Locke, they've been suggesting that anything over 680, 660 students for that building was too much. So this year it was 750. This coming
really
September, it's proposed to be at about 765. And, we all know that those numbers can fluctuate with, a little bit more building in the feeder system that is provided for that school. That could change by 20 or 30 or 40 upwards. So I guess they're legitimately concerned about that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. Just 2 very quick items. I do want to echo Councillor Stoyle's sentiments as it pertains to City Day. Certainly it was a great success. The weather certainly cooperated. A big thank you to all of the volunteers, certainly the organizing committee. I expect they've been meeting since sometime in March or April to get all the events planned, and they've been working really hard, so kudos to them certainly. So Director Collins, if you could pass on to staff and the committee that they've done a great job, and certainly congratulations, a fantastic weekend all around. I also, speaking of this weekend, I do want to mention, of course, the Special Olympics Provincial Summer Games. A great event once again. Congratulations to all of our athletes, especially those from Mount Pearl who were so successful. And I do want to say a word about the volunteers. As you can expect, due to the circumstances around the Special Olympics Summer Games and the gathering of athletes of that type, certainly there are an awful lot of volunteers that are required. Both from the sport perspective, from the housing perspective, and it goes right on down the line. So a big word of thank you to the organizers, congratulations to the organizing committee, and certainly a thank you to all of the volunteers who worked so hard to make it such a great weekend for our tremendous athletes. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aker.
I wasn't sure where you were going then.
I didn't know either.
I want to echo as well, but the City Days was fantastic. The weather didn't cooperate Saturday morning, but you know something, everybody still had a good time at the boat races and the family fun day. Biggest crowd I think I've ever seen down the City Days. You know, the distance between the beer tent and the crowd was full. You know what I mean? And sometimes there's a gap there. The bands were really good. They played a little over, I guess, and I didn't hear any complaints, which is good. And I'm assuming that the ones are generally a low key band. Special Olympics, yeah, throw it out to all of them, including the athletes from Mount Pearl and all the organizers. Did a great job. I just want to pass on the council a comment I received from a resident today, and it has to do with the park bench, which is always located. She lives off Ruth Avenue, and we often put park benches by our bus stops. And we recently replaced that bench because it had gone, I think, in part of the operation over the winter, the bench had been damaged. Mrs. Penton wanted to pass on to everybody. She's some glad to have it back. She finds it very difficult getting to the bus stop from her house, and when she gets there, she likes to have a place to sit and rest while the bus is coming. So the bench arrived, I think, in the last day or two. Director Antle, please pass it on to all the staff at Public Works. She is most grateful, very, very happy, and you've made her day. Thank you.
Did everybody see the email that I sent out? I got a copy of about the person who had a problem getting their garbage container repaired. And before they ever had any chance to do, they went away, and when they got back, the thing had already been fixed. That's impressive stuff, guys. You're setting real high standards for yourselves. I'm just saying, you're setting some high standards for yourselves, which is good.
Our crowd.
Deputy Mayor Locke.
Well, everything has been said that I was going to touch on, but I just want to throw out a big thanks to Councillor Walsh, actually, for City Days events. He and Mr. Wayne Evans, I think, the gentleman. We had the first tea time, which was a new event this year, and Councillor Walsh and Mr. Evans were down, and I got to say, the entertainment was fantastic.
Did he have his angels with him? Did he have his minstrels with him?
No.
No, you were kind of on your own, were you? Right?
The laughter and the stories that were told, I mean, it was a good time.
I told a couple of the stories were a little off color, is what I'm
told. Everyone got a laugh. Everyone got a laugh. So thanks to Councillor Walsh. Again, it was a great job, John, and I know all the people in attendance, they really appreciated that and taking time out of your schedule to do that, and it was very nice. We had a couple of new events, the tea time, and two others actually, the Decorate Your Bike. We had 3 bikes decorated, but I think the excitement was they won their weight in gold in ice cream, thanks to our sponsor, Central Dairies. A little girl won. I forget her name, but I encouraged her to put some sand, and John suggested lead in her shoes when she got on the scales. So she was only 3'8", but she came in at 260 pounds, I think. So
she did well.
Just enough ice cream for 3 years. So that was great fun. And our pancake breakfast on Sunday morning at the Reed Centre.
That was something.
Prince and Princesses. That was a beautiful event, and I mean, I was very impressed with the turnout.
I came as a king. Did everybody know that?
We saw you afterwards, right? And Councillor Stolz was also dressed up as well as she was a queen. Yeah. So thanks to Campia for cooking the pancakes that morning. But it was a great turnout. The crowds were wonderful. The weather cooperated. And again, kudos to our staff. And as I mentioned in the media, all the volunteers that come out every year and give so freely of their time.
Amen to all of that.
One other thing I wanted to mention, Councillor Aker was just mentioning about the lady and the bus stop and easy access and finding it difficult to get around. A week before last, I got an interesting request from a lady, Miss Carol Wells, actually, And she travels the city. She has severe osteoarthritis. So she has to travel the city in a scooter. So she asked me if I'd be willing to go with her on a scooter around the city to see what she has to endure. She had an extra scooter, so I did. I went around for an hour and a half, and boy, what a different perspective. I was speaking to Director Antle about this, and I bike ride and walk the city, but you have no idea the obstacles these people face. Just the clickety-clack, clickety-clack, the seams in the sidewalk. So I asked the Director Antle about this. I know we need the cuts for expansion joints, but Carol asked, we have the cuts, but then it's like they take a piece of strapping and they sort of tap it into the cement. So in addition to the cut, there's like a little depression in each sidewalk, on either side of it. So based on a report that, thank you for that report that Director Antle sent to me on the sidewalk standards in Sauer Construction, they're not necessary. But I'm not kidding. When I drove up Smallwood Drive, because we came down Park Avenue, Ruth Avenue, went up Smallwood Drive, I literally got motion sick going over the sidewalk. And it's not like you're doing a lot of speed, but it's like ticka, 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 ticka. So it gave a real appreciation. And Miss Wells just had her ankle fused, due to her ailment, and she said she can feel it in her back and her ankles, and I could feel it in my back going around. So it gave me a great appreciation for what they have to endure. So it wasn't just, the seams, because again, Director Antle said that's something we could look at, but the cut downs and the curbs, just coming to the crosswalks and going across. I was embarrassed that I actually got stuck. I was trying to come up over a curb here by City Hall, and I got stuck. My wheels just spun. I had to get off and physically move the scooter. And again, on a bike or when you're walking, it's no big deal because, you got an inch. But on a scooter, it was tough to get up. And in some places, like where Smallwood Drive meets Commonwealth Avenue there, east of Commonwealth, you're going down the sidewalk there, and then they got the painted crosswalk on the road, but there's no cut down the curb. So in order for her to go across that way, she has to go up Smallwood Drive, go down a driveway, and then drive up the laneway to hook on and get onto the crosswalk. So she took me around and pointed out, literally dozens of locations where, she's at a disadvantage. And then again up to Merchant Drive, we went up Old Placentia Road and cut across there by the Dominion to go into the Dominion and Merchant Drive. And, going across the crosswalk was fine, but then you go down the sidewalk, and then it just ends. You cannot get off the sidewalk there. So it was an interesting perspective that she raised. And simple things like when we do the down cuts, is there a need to have that inch? Could it go perfectly flush with the pavement? Now, Miss Wells, she was an absolute delight, and she wasn't complaining or shouting. She just said, Jim, I just want you to come around with me and see. She said, I realize we can't tear up all the sidewalks in the city. I understand that. But what she was asking for is that, here at City Hall.
She was being a teacher.
Yes.
You
absolutely.
appreciated that.
You
learned
absolutely.
a lot.
But she said, since, over the past, this term of council, she mentioned how we now have a new green lens at City Hall. So then when we do different developments, we're now looking at it through an environmental lens. All that she's asking is when we do our planning and our street upgrades, that we throw another lens there now, that we throw a lens on for people that have mobility issues. And she indicates that there's perhaps 100 people in the city with these scooters, these motorized four-wheel scooters and wheelchairs. And she said, I'm a lucky one, Jim, because I can get out and actually move. But she said some people cannot. And I know I brought this up at council. I said to her, it's a difficult issue for me. That, I get people saying, Jim, I almost clipped the person coming down Smallwood Drive because they were in their motorized wheelchair and they're towing a little cart along. They said, is that legal? Should they be allowed on the road? But after my experience, I understand why they go on the road. Because if you can't get out of your wheelchair, you don't have a choice. You got to go on the road. So it was interesting. One thing that she did mention is that, and again, something for us to consider when we're making the sidewalks, and you got to actually push the button to activate the crosswalk. We don't have enough space for her to get in on her scooter to do that. Like the sidewalk ends, and then sometimes you got to get off and walk across the grass to actually push the button.
Well, we have other issues with that when it comes to the disabled, even in wintertime in particular.
Absolutely.
With people trying to, with snowbanks, and they end up having to climb over a partial snowbank. We haven't we clear the sidewalk or whatever, but we really don't pay enough attention to where we've got those buttons placed.
Right.
I'm not sure that having those buttons on those poles is where those buttons should be, but that's, that's,
Anyways, she was a delightful lady. I told her I would bring it up here publicly at council. And again, she said, Jim, I'm lucky. I can get out and push the button. Now, she's slow doing it. But at one point up on Ruth Avenue where Roosevelt is, I was behind her. She got out, pushed the light, but by the time she got back in her chair and got down, well, now the hand is up, blinking. So she said,
gone too fast for her.
I can't get out. No, she said, again, I'm lucky. Anybody that's in a wheelchair that can't get out, they're not pushing the lights. So it was a fascinating hour and a half. I was going around the city, and what a learning experience, The old saying, walk a mile in my shoes. Now, she loves our pathways. She celebrated our pathways in the city. She said they're wonderful, but her husband doesn't like her going on the pathways by herself.
Understandable.
So she stays to the sidewalks. So again, I spoke with Director Antle. He's sensitive to this, and I think fair to say, I'll speak with Ms. Wells and say, that we are sensitive to the fact. And again, she said, I know you can't tear up all the sidewalks, but as you're putting in the new sidewalks, is there a need to put these depressions along your cuts? And can you make the cut downs closer to the pavement to make it easier to go across? And can we probably extend the sidewalk so that those in a scooter can actually wheel in by the buttons to push the crosswalk? So I said I would do that. But it was fascinating. It was an interesting hour and a half in the wheelchair.
Yeah. Just if I can add just for a second to it, it is. It's interesting that you bring it up in the exercise that you went through. Maybe we should all go through it. But we met last week with the Coalition on Disabilities.
I think it was the same day, actually, that you guys met. I was out driving around.
In the city. We talked a great deal about blue zones and about a strategy revolving around blue zones. And the city of Mount Pearl, without your knowledge, we do this often, don't we? We committed the city of Mount Pearl to participate actively with them in dealing with issues about standardizing the blue zones, dealing with those matters, issues of accessibility. They were very intrigued at the meeting that our municipal strategy for the next 5 years, well, for the next 3, 2 of it's gone, deals with issues surrounding providing constant improvement in the delivery of municipal service as opposed to constant growth. That's our strategy. That's where we are. What you encountered speaks to the heart of that. How do we improve what we provide in services to those who have disabilities in our community? And that's almost a specialized area of study for us, quite frankly.
Indeed.
And I don't think we're there yet by any means, but I felt the coalition were very enthusiastic about our openness to change and to participating and being a part of. And obviously, you experienced that with her, and I think that's wonderful. I remember, I've said it here before about people that have talked about when we designed this square here. Why did we put in all the interlocking brick? Because somebody on a wheelchair, that just breaks their...
Well, it's funny you should raise that, because she took me down and stopped
really
me by
difficult.
home, and she said, I'm going to stop here now. You carry on.
Yeah, it's
Right?
really pretty.
You're shaken up by
It's
the
really
time you get
pretty,
there.
but and so these are things we need to rethink in the future, and I appreciate her doing that, and I appreciate your bringing it all forward.
And
Final thoughts.
I did mention to Mr. Antle as well about the when we upgrade the sidewalks, for example. Like one thing that they did out in St. John's on the Crosstown Arterial is they replaced the sidewalk and they paved it. Now, again, Mr. Antle mentioned about the engineering behind it and all that sort of stuff. But I think about in other jurisdictions, for example, like in Vancouver, in Victoria, where they have these pedestrian paths, for argument's sake, that are wider than our paths. That there's a special lane for people that rollerblade, that people that are on these scooters and stuff like that. So I was just curious. Like we have some wide sidewalks, for example, like going up Ruth Avenue on the left-hand side heading up. They're nice wide sidewalks. And because she asked me, she said, if it was paved like our pathways, it would be much smoother and easier to get around on. But there's some engineering challenges to that, and again, that was in the report that Mr. Antle sent to me. But that's it, Your Worship. I did want to bring it up, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any final comment from anybody? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Ledwell. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.